If you enjoy listening to inspirational stories from people just like us, facing the fear and doing it anyway, then you're in the right place. My name is Claire Hill, and this is the No Rest for the Vivid podcast. Hello, how are we? Happy International Women's Week. I'm very honoured that I got nominated for a Shiro, which is a female hero who deserves to be recognised and celebrated. And I've got a little note saying about how I help encourage other women and support them. Got me right in the eyeballs, honestly. I was a bit of a mess yesterday about that, but I've no idea who nominated me. Thank you, whoever you are. Absolutely amazing. I am working this week. We've done lots and lots. Obviously, I'm working this week. Why did I say that? I've been working a lot in the Vivid Club this week, the Vivid Club membership. We had our first warrior workshop on Monday, and I talked about it's a mini training, the warrior workshops, about creating warrior energy. And yesterday was content day. So 10 o'clock yesterday morning, we did our first content champions workshop. And then yesterday evening, we did another session, because when I have these days of content and group coaching, etc., I try to do 2 days, 2 options for times, because people don't like missing out on a live, do they? So that was yesterday. It was so much fun. And this week I raised £320 for the Disasters Emergencies Committee for the Ukraine appeal. Really proud of that. All of those hearts are going out. I made 40. I'm going to probably make some more next month, so that, because this issue is not going to go away. They're still going to need funds, aren't they? I'm also offering power hours. So on Thursday, the 24th of March, I'm offering power hours as like strategy power hours if you run a small business. They are £100 instead of £150, and all of that money is going to the Disaster Emergencies Committee as well. So fingers crossed, I'm going to raise £920, and then I'm going to round it up to 1,000. So I'm excited about that. Today, I have my wonderful friend Jo Sayers on the podcast. She is part of the group of women that I joined together with in a mastermind back in October. All 6 of us are now firm friends, and it's like we, are in a girl band together. And Jo really is they're all lush, but she's really lush. They're all really lush. I've got no favourites, but I love her. I love her dearly. We were talking today about being a mum, coaching, how it can transform how you think and how you act and how you feel about yourself. And coaching is really transformational, even to the point of, group coaching, one-to-one coaching, and even self-coaching. And I feel like with the Vivid Club and with my one-to-one clients, there's a lot of mentoring that I do with my one-to-one clients. So really helping them hands-on in their business. And I love doing that. But I also love challenging their thoughts and just saying, but what if you looked at it like this? Or question them in a way to see that they really are the most magical human beings, and they deserve what they dream of. And I think we move through life in a way that stops us from protecting our dreams and protecting these ideas that we have. And I know I've said this before in a previous episode, but coaching gives us that power from within. That was romantic and poetic, wasn't it? But it really does. It builds our resilience to pushing ourselves forward, more forward, to the point where we're supposed to be, reaching our potential. And coaching is a wonderful tool for that. I'm so proud of the work that I do with my clients and what they do, and how they then take what they learn and put it into their business and onwards. So yeah, it's a wonderful conversation with Jo. I hope you enjoy it, and have a good week. Hi Jo.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. Welcome to my podcast.
Thanks for having me.
I I've just told you we've got to do a fake hello.
I know. Oh dear.
I don't know whether that's on every single person's podcast though, that they have to do a
Hello.
fake hello. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway, welcome. Your
Thanks.
name is Jo.
It is.
You're and you live in this country in the UK.
Yeah, I do. Mate, what's your name and where'd you come from?
What is your name and where do you come from and what do you do? Why are you here?
Because you made me.
Yeah, too true.
Well, I'm Jo, and I am a mindset and confidence coach for mums.
Lovely. Lovely. And where do you live?
I live in Bristol.
That's a nice part of the world.
Bit grey today.
Yeah. Grey everywhere.
Yeah, it's today.
Yeah.
It's
so I know you.
Yeah.
You're a person. I've met you in real life. And we were part of a mastermind group together.
Yeah.
With 4 other amazing women. And we're now we've got like basically a girl band and we talk every day. And so it's like nearly 6 months that we've been friends now, isn't it? Since we started that. But it's all very intensive and mastermind, isn't it? So we all became quite close quite quickly.
Yeah, very quickly. Warts and all.
Yeah, because you're so vulnerable in those conversations, aren't you? Because of the group coaching part. How did you become? What's your story? What's your business love story? Tell everyone. Once upon a time.
Well, I mean, like my life, it looks very, very different from what it did 3 years ago. So, well, only back in January this year. So that's when I've taken my coaching full time, as you know. But before that, I was a police officer and was for 14 years, around about 14 years. I mean, I've always liked the idea of being self-employed, and I've dabbled. I've done like little businesses on the side, like little side hustles as they call it. But I've never ever kind of gone all in. Well, I did actually, as a lie. I did once, but I went back to the police. But yeah, it literally, like how my life is now, if you'd have asked me 3 years ago, I'd have said not a chance. No way. So I suppose how it started was I was pretty much at rock bottom, but I didn't realize it. I'd completely lost my confidence after having children, my second in particular. But I was showing up as fine. So everyone said, how are you? I'm fine. And actually 99.9% of the world would have known, probably only my husband would have known there was a problem. I started working with this guy on an investigation, and his wife was trained to be a life coach. And he kind of kept saying things about like, well, apparently, Jo, if you change your thoughts, you can change your life. And I was like, whatever, like that is never gonna happen. Like I've got way too many thoughts in my head for that to ever happen. But he was sat next to me, so I couldn't get away from him, and he talks a lot. So he'd kind of come in, and to be fair, we'd both kind of say, oh, I don't know why she's wasting her time doing that. And slowly but surely I kind of started listening. And again, it wasn't like I need to have this coaching. It was kind of when I had nowhere else to turn. I didn't want to go to the doctor, and I kind of had nowhere else to turn. So one night, me and Andy had a massive row, and I woke up and I was like, I've got to do something, because I know I don't want to live like this forever. And just, she'd offered me coaching because she was learning to coach, and she needed a practice client, and I still said no. But then I just kind of texted John that morning and said, can I come and see her? And they said yeah. And that's kind of like, you know, you talk about that sliding doors moment.
Yeah,
I like look back and think that was definitely my sliding door moment of like, yeah, changing my life. And it wasn't like overnight. That probably like a year of working on myself and working with both Nikki and then John as well, because he then became a coach. So we always laugh. We were both like, what a load of rubbish, and now we're both coaching.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, that was definitely the kind of start of a whole new path, and I would have never ever had said that would have been the case.
Wow. And isn't it funny how it's all sort of meant to be that you were working on that investigation just at that time when his wife was training to be a coach, and you're just like, yeah, whatever, that's just a load of, and it sort of got into you through osmosis, and then suddenly you were like, but what if
yeah,
this could really help me?
yeah, and it's even more kind of like, you know, again, if I'd have been saying this 3 years ago, I'd be like, Joe, what are you saying? But like, I do think now the universe, like, things happen at the right time. And so me and John particularly, we were always on the same team, but we never met each other.
Oh,
So
right.
we were always on team 4, as they call it. But we never met each other because I was on maternity. When I came back, he was on a different investigation, and we just never met each other. Only in passing when I came in for, you know, your keep in touch days. And then yeah, we happened to be working together at the time when Nikki was training. It's like, it's mental. It blows my mind.
And how did she get into it? Do you know how she decided to become a coach?
Yeah, so she got into it through a life. They did like a well-being day at work, and because she was working at the time, and she was in charge of sorting out the day. And then this life coach came in and then gave all the employees a session. Um, and then that was when she knew she wanted to know more about it.
Wow.
So yeah.
Amazing. So at that point, when you were like rock bottom, and you,
Mm.
was there like a, in your head when you were thinking about it, did you consider going to the doctors and having like some support around that? Why wasn't that? No, let me get this question right. It's not like it wasn't an option. It was an option, but you
Mm.
were averse to it. Do you remember why you were adverse to that, but okay with coaching?
Yeah, I do, because it was asking for help. I didn't want to ask for
Mm.
any help. That was the thing. I felt like I should do it on my own, and I wouldn't have been able to say that at the time. But looking back now, I felt like, you know, when you compare yourself to other people, because we love to do that, don't we? When we compare ourselves to other people, okay, people might say I've had a bad day, but you know how bad it is in your head, and everyone else looks like they've got their everything together. Um,
You can swear, by the way.
thanks. Got their shit together.
Just give me permission.
Thanks, got their shit together. Um, and um, and I just thought, like, you know, outwardly people would have said, you know, Joe, you come across confidently, you're bubbly, you're chatty. And actually now when I put stuff in mum's mind, I've got people, that friends in there, and they're like, I'd have never ever known. And that's the thing. I think, you know, there's so much going on in all of our heads all the time, potentially. And it was like, looking back, it was nothing to do with it being on my medical records. That was what my brain was giving me as a reason. But it was because I didn't want to ask for help. And although I said I went for coaching, it was my last resort. Like, I didn't know what else to do. And that was on the table. And I think it was just that, what if that
Mm,
could work?
yeah, what if? It's that whole, you know, what if you fall, but what if you fly kind of
Yeah,
thing, isn't it? So
yeah,
you were coached, and then
yeah,
how did that transform into you becoming a full-time coach for mums?
yeah. Um, so I had the coaching. I remember, so they live about 45 minutes away from us. And I cried the whole way there. And I was like, this isn't going to help. And Nikki, bless her, opened the door with open arms. And I think we'd only met about 2 or 3 times before that. And and I had the kind of this session with her, and I remember thinking in the car journey, nothing is going to work. Like, I've just got to live with it. And I remember coming away, and I was like, what if? Like, and I remember driving back, and I wasn't crying, but I remember thinking, what if this could change things? And then I was just so fortunate that I had so many sessions with her through her practicing, because I'd have never paid for it, Claire. Like, I wouldn't have invested in myself. No way. Not only did I not want to ask for help, there's no way I'd have paid for it.
Mm,
Like,
yeah, because at that point as well, your self-worth, your feeling
mm,
of
mm,
self-worth was really low.
mm, mm,
And you know, you're saying about, I mean, I've just realized that, like, I know how you were feeling, but we probably haven't told everyone exactly how you feel, but you had no confidence.
no.
What was it, do you think, that I'm going to come back to like how you get into coaching, but what do you think it was about having Benjamin that you thought, is it Benjamin the second? No, Bethany.
No,
Oh,
no,
it is
Bethany's
Benjamin.
second. Yeah, yeah. So Benjamin's my eldest.
Oh, okay.
I think I had really bad pregnancies with both of them, but with Bethany, I had hyperemesis.
What's that?
And with, you know, you're just sick all the time.
Oh God, did you?
Yeah. I
Oh,
can't
you
believe I
poor
haven't told you.
thing. No, I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
Yeah, so I had it with Benjamin, but I was able to go into work. But with Bethany, I was off from 5 weeks pregnant. And with girls, they say it's worse anyway. But yeah, so I was in the house for 9 months. And I think I know exactly what it was that, like, I think when you have a child, your priorities change, don't they? Like, I loved my job before and I could stay on. It wasn't a problem. It was only a phone call to Andy to say I'm staying on. Like, it didn't affect anything. But then when you become a mum, I was like, right, I'm being a rubbish mum and I'm being a rubbish police officer. Like, I can't. So I think that was the start of it. But then when I had Bethany, I was off from 5 weeks pregnant, in and out of hospital, because you just throw up to the point where you throw up everything. So I was even trying to suck ice cubes and I would throw that up. Like,
Oh my
it was
goodness.
awful. So you become so dehydrated that you then go into hospital, they put you on a drip, let you out again. And do you know what? Walking out of the hospital and feeling no better and knowing that you had like another 7 months to go was the worst like feeling ever. So and at that point I then had Benjamin as well. So
Yeah.
Benjamin was looked after between my parents, my in-laws, and Andy. And I remember one day, I was probably about 7 weeks pregnant. I was like, Joe, you've just got to get on with this. And I remember messaging my friend, because the antenatal lot were meeting up, and I was like, yeah, I'll be there. And I was trying to get Benjamin ready, and I crawled to the bathroom to be sick. And I was like, I've got no chance. I can't go. So yeah, I think for the whole 9 months he was looked after, and the guilt that I just put on myself for, not accepting that I was unwell, I think, because everyone says like, there's not a lot of information about hyperemesis. It only affects 1% of people that are pregnant, apparently, or it was back then. And everyone gets morning sickness, don't they? Or a lot of people get morning sickness, but it's kind of on a different level. And I think that it was the judgment I was putting on myself for, I should, again, just get on with it, Joe, just get on with it. So I think that was definitely the start of where I lost my confidence and how I beat myself up, I suppose. Like, you can't do pregnancy right, you can't have a baby right, you can't look after your other child right. So yeah, that was probably definitely the start of it.
Wow. God, that's hard going, babe. No wonder.
It
That's the
was.
thing, is, it's like learning to be compassionate with yourself. It's like, that's really tough. That's like a really tough few years.
Yeah.
It's not just 9 months, it's a few years.
Yeah.
So that was obviously, so how old was Bethany when you started the coaching then?
So when I never went back to the police then after having Bethany, I think I just completely, I wanted an escape. Like, I suppose probably then I had the thing of I'd been off for sick for so long. So I had that going on in my head, like, now everyone's going to know you've been off sick. And so I never actually went back to the police. I left the police at that point. I resigned to do a business doing inventories for rental properties, which was just not my cup of tea. You're in an empty house with no one to talk to, Claire. And as you know, I like to talk. So that was never going to work for me. I spent more time talking to the estate agents than I did actually doing the inventories. And then I went back to the police then. And that's then how I obviously met John. So I went back into the police. But when I went back, I just completely lost my confidence. Things that I've been doing for 10, 11 years, I was second guessing everything. I wasn't handing my work in because I felt it wasn't good enough. I was able to show up fine in work and have a laugh and a joke, because you don't want to show anyone in work that there's a problem. But then I was coming home and I was just so angry, and the smallest thing would just tip me over the edge. And people used to say like, oh, your husband's so lucky to have you, you're always having a laugh and a joke. And I was like, it's a very different story at home. And I'd say that jokingly, but it was like a completely different story at home.
Wow. God. And so you had your coaching, you started seeing a positive impact. Do you remember when there a moment when you thought, this is working? Was it just really gradual?
Do you know, the thing that stands out when you ask that is I was in charge of booking. So every year, my family, there's like loads of us, 40 of us, say, probably a bit less, I'm exaggerating, but there's probably 35 of us. We'd all go and stay in a hotel. And I always volunteered to book the hotel. And this one year, there's 2 hotels very close together. So we always went to this one hotel, but I'd accidentally booked the other hotel. So all my family arrived before me to go to the one we normally went to. And they rang me, they were all ringing me, Joe, like we're not booked in, and I'd booked the other hotel. So then all my family had to go to this other hotel, which wasn't as like, there wasn't the space we normally have, and like it's all generations, so they like what they know.
Yeah.
And before, oh my gosh, I'd have been beside myself. I would
Yeah.
have beat myself up. I probably wouldn't have wanted to go, but I just reacted so differently. And I was like, I've made a mistake. Like, and I think that's when you asked that question, that was the first thing that came up. Like, as in, I was just nice to myself. And I was like, you've just made a mistake, Joe. Like,
Oh,
so I
lovely.
think that was it. Yeah, that was
Oh.
probably it when I noticed the difference.
And so then you became, so how did you then so that's going back to my original question.
Yeah.
When did you think, I can do this? I want to do it for other mums?
I think because I felt so lonely, even though I was surrounded by so many people, and I felt like, is this the way of life? But then felt guilty about that because I seemingly had it all, like, and I had, like, a lovely husband, healthy children, and I think the amount of guilt I put on myself for not being happy and how lonely that made me feel. And when I saw the impact that coaching had, I was like, I don't think people know about this. And that was then I need to know more. But I was done with being self-employed, Claire. Like, I was like, why would you be self-employed? Like, you're gonna ruin your life. Like, you're gonna miss out on time with your family. So yeah, it was a complete U-turn. But I think it was that, this can really change people's lives, and I don't think anyone knows about it.
Yeah. And but I remember when that self-employed conversation, when remember when we chatted about it, because you've given your notice in for the police now, you're full time.
Yeah.
And when before you did that, you were like, but what if it fails? And it's like, yeah, but it's happened before. And I said, yeah, that's happened to me before. I went self-employed before and it failed. I went back to work. But and I went back to the same job as well. Like, and they were like, oh, do you regret? I remember this one dickhead. He was like, do you regret leaving in the first place now because you're not a manager? And I was like, no, I'm still going to become a manager. And then literally the next interviews, I got the job over him. Absolute dick. But that's, like, I'd gone and come back, and I felt so embarrassed. But then I was like, when I was talking to you about it, I was like, actually, retrospectively, it was like the biggest lessons I've learned. I learned all those lessons about what kind of thing that I enjoyed doing. I always wanted to be self-employed, but was drowned out that loud noise of a safe career and all of that. Like, obviously you, police officer, education. I was speaking to another coach, she was a social worker, exactly the same. It's like that society makes you believe that working for the government is like the way to go. But it just can actually slowly drain your life force out of certain people. I know some people who thrive, absolutely thrive. Brilliant. Good for you. I did not find that. But yeah, when I was talking to you about it, and then when we came together in this mastermind, that was the big thing that you had to go, that hurdle. And I remember you beating yourself up going, I haven't got enough, I'm being a crap coach and a crap police officer. You just went
yeah, it like how those patterns, like how I recognize those patterns in myself. Yeah, completely. And I think when I went back the first time to the police, everyone, or the way I took it, was everyone was a bit like, oh, you've come back. Because you're right, like leaving a job like that, even this time people are like, you're so brave, are you sure? Like, you have to,
I told you they would say everyone's gonna go, cool, you're brave.
And the thing is, like, well, I think now if you work on yourself, you can do anything, but like, that kind of, and I suppose the fear of, if coaching didn't work, would I just go back again? Like, and then I've got to walk into that, and I've made peace that kind of, won't happen.
No.
But yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Like that kind of walking back in and being like, I'm back, and everyone like, oh, there she is, she's back, and you're like, oh.
Yeah,
makes you feel a bit,
prove them all right. But then now we're laughing, Joe.
Well,
love it. I was thinking, like, I'm coming up for, it's like going to be in 3 months, 2 years since I decided to leave education, and it's like 2 years. That means I've been doing it full time longer than I was doing it not full-time now.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
When you were saying about thoughts can change everything, if you change your thoughts, it can change everything. And obviously we know that. But to somebody who's listening to this, he's like, yeah, whatever. Because we had this conversation the other day about how skeptical you were about coaching.
Yeah.
You have your Facebook group, don't you?
Yeah.
Mum's Mum. We'll talk about that in a minute. But when do you remember? Because I don't think I was ever that skeptical about that part of it in a way, because I believe that, do you know, I can't even remember how I went into that, but I know that I was thinking, well, if I think one way, maybe it's because of always trying to be hopeful and reframing. I've always been able to go, that's quite bad, but it's happened for a reason. I've learned this, and I've always been able to do that. Can you remember one thought that you had all the time that you've managed to flip now, and how it's made you feel?
Oh gosh, I think
it might be too personal, so don't have to answer.
No. I think. Oh, I do know what it was. It was the very first one I was given. So, because also I think the way I was coming at it was, oh, you're just going to tell me to think positive, and so that was my thing.
So hard.
Yeah. And now I know that's not the case. And actually, trying to think positive when something's shit is really hard, and it's not about that at all. So my first coaching session, my husband, his ears would have been burning, bless him. Like there was a lot of kind of like, you don't do this, I do everything, like I can do it on my own type thing. And I remember that so my thought was, I do everything, he does nothing. And we spoke through kind of how that thought made me feel, how that feeling made me act, and then the result that I got. And Nikki was like, do you want to keep that thought? And I was like, well, if I do, it's going to end our marriage. Like, that's not going to be a good thought to keep. And she said, okay, what about I love my husband? And I'm like, no, not there. Not at this moment. And she said, go with taking it back to the absolute fact, which is what I do now with so many of my clients, is I have a husband.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I have a husband. And, so when he's not cleaning the kitchen, or he's left the mug on the side when I've just cleaned everything, like, I have a husband. It doesn't make me think I want to go and give him a cuddle, but it also doesn't make me think I do everything. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't take me to that place either. And I remember the next day, so God, even thinking about this, there'd be so much that I wouldn't do for fear of it going wrong. So I would hate it if we went out as a family of 4, because things would go wrong. It wouldn't be perfect, and not like that I always wanted it to be perfect, but if one thing went wrong, that was it was ruined. And we went on a bike ride, and it just kind of went wrong from the start. We didn't have money actually we went to this car park, and I said to him, have you got money for the machine? He was like, yeah. And I was like, oh great, brilliant, that's saved that one. And then he said, but then the machine wasn't working. So then we were like, we were in the car park, but I kept saying to myself, I have a husband. Like, it's not his fault. Do you know what I mean? Whereas before, that would have just taken me to sky high. So I think that was the first time. And he came back to the car, and I could see him like riding his bike back to the car, and his face was like, she is going to kick off. And he came up to me, and I was just like, I have a husband. And we just burst out laughing. And that just changed the whole day, and something had gone wrong beforehand as well. And it just changed the whole day, because otherwise we'd have been arguing on the bike ride. I'd have been not happy. Do you know what I mean? It would just change the whole day. And so that, in answer, it was that thought that I saw a big change. And it's not about thinking positive.
No. I used to say that all the time, and I do not say that at all anymore, because it's just finding a glimmer of hope in a situation. And by saying I have a husband, you're just recognizing that at least you have a husband that you have. Some people might be better off than not having a husband, but your husband's a decent one. And it's just sort of like remembering that. I remember going through this period with Dan when before I did any work on myself, before I was probably just after Jackson, or when I went back to work, exactly the same thought. I do everything, he does nothing.
Mm.
And I realised that because I didn't feel in control of how I felt, because I was so unhappy, I wanted to control everything else. And I didn't actually allow him to do anything. So when I realised this, and I was like, okay, what I'm going to do is do job. Well, I told him this is where I should have. Now we're better at it, because at first I controlled what jobs he did, but now it's like, okay, what job shall we do each?
Mm-hmm.
But we split it down the middle. Everything's half and half. If something doesn't get done that's his job, I don't touch it.
Mm-hmm.
I just let him recognise that I trust that he's a grown man that likes to have a nice home.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just don't do anything about it. And then the amount, like, we swapped everything around, because he was like, I'm fed up with clearing up the dog shit all the time and doing the cat litter tray. I was like, fine, I'll tell you what, I've washed our clothes for a decade. Why don't you do that? And I'll do all the shit, literally the shit jobs. I'll do those and you can do the. He was like, okay, fine. And I honestly freaked out, because I was like, oh, he's going to do it wrong. Like, washing's my thing. I don't know. He's bloody better at it than me, Joe.
Oh,
he is always on top of the washing.
Yeah.
He never forgets to put a load on. He never leaves it in the washing machine. Like, he never forgets it's in there. It's always dry. It's folded into each of our piles. And like, I never did that. I used to just bung it all together and just, because it's so, the clothes aren't too, it's a better job. And then there's me worrying about it. Yeah. But now it's like, I think it's just trusting, isn't it? Because when you feel out of control, you have to pinpoint, don't you? When you feel out of control of how you feel, like there's no way out, you're always going to feel like this. You're going to try and control situations and control the people that are closest to you, aren't you?
Yeah. And that was the thing that I found, like, and I still do it now, like, as in when I'm losing control or I haven't given myself that time to work out how I'm feeling, my cleaning will come up. Like, I will want the house to look like a show home, and with 2 kids, it doesn't happen, does it? I don't even think it looked like a show home before we had kids.
No.
But yeah, like having that control over it. And I think, like, Andy used to come in from work and he wouldn't know what mood I was going to be in.
Yeah.
And it affects him as well. Do you know what I mean? Like, and yeah, it's but then I wasn't giving myself any compassion. I was just like, oh, look, now Andy's, scared to come home. Like, not scared, I wasn't, but as in, like, he just didn't and he described it as he always felt like he was walking on eggshells.
Yeah.
And actually, I always felt like he never wanted to give me his opinion on anything. And then I remember, like, maybe 18 months ago, 2 years ago, when I'd started coaching, I asked him about something and he said, oh, have you considered doing it this way? And I was like, oh, yeah, I could do. And he was like, wow. And I was like, what? And he was like, I'd have never said that to you before. And I was like, why? And he's like, because I wouldn't have known how you'd have taken it.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, but I thought that by him not saying stuff to me was because he didn't care, whereas he didn't want to say it to me because he didn't know my reaction.
Wow.
I know.
Oh my God. And now you ask him about everything.
Yeah. And he gives his opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember actually, like, a turning point for when I heard him notice how much the effect of coaching had on me. He was being coached and I just overheard him say something like, she dances again. And I know. And I was like, and he was like, she dances in the kitchen with the kids again. And that to me was like,
oh, that's so beautiful, isn't it? Just to recognize how happy you are.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean that life's perfect, does it? But I had no space for any of that.
No.
Like, I just had, but I wouldn't have even known that was the thing. That's the thing. And I think that's the thing that I want to get across to kind of my followers and stuff, is because you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And when I heard him say that she dances again, I was like, oh God. Yeah.
That is just, yeah, bloody hell. And so when you started coaching, you created your Mum's Mind Facebook group. I feel like I've just gone really serious after, because I've got choked up at that, so I'm like trying to get back. I just like feel like I didn't just edit that bit, when you hear a podcast it's just changed his voice. No, that's just how I spoke.
She did. I can confirm.
But with so you created your Mum's Mind Facebook, and what was the intention of creating that group?
do you know what? Like, I'd only just started my coaching certification at that point, and I'd done Facebook groups in the past for like greeting cards that I'd done, and it was just to kind of like allow people to see that there's an option. I think that was it. Like, and I think it's become normal that mums are overwhelmed. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, as in, that's the normality. Like, for me, it was like, if you weren't overwhelmed, you were doing something wrong almost.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of wanted to put the stuff out there that I was learning, and the stuff that I'd learned and how it had changed my life, or how it had began to change my life. And it's not like a magic pill that you take and one day you're that way and the next day you're like, you know, it's constant work. And even this morning, like, I was like, wow, reflecting on how I would have reacted to something this morning to now. But yeah, it was just to kind of put out there that this was an option, because I never knew it as an option. So yeah, that's kind of why. And I started it right at the second lockdown. So I think it was a couple of days before Boris Johnson had announced the second lockdown in the January, because we'd gone through so much with the first lockdown, hadn't we? Like, our routine was whipped from under us. And yeah, so that's kind of why I started it, is to just give out tips. Because actually I started a Kind Minds through the first lockdown, because I was kind of really overwhelmed by how much negative stuff was on Facebook. So me and a colleague from work, actually, we started Kind Minds, and we just put out like feel good quotes and like the nice things that came out of COVID on social media. So that's how it started. And then I thought, oh, I wonder if I could do that for mums with regards to what I was learning for the coaching. So yeah, that's how it started.
Oh, amazing. And so it's only been going like a year then?
Yeah. Just over a year.
And how many members have you got now?
We nearly got 4,000, nearly. So close to 4,000. But do you know what? It is such a, you know, I kind of say how coaching has helped my journey, and now kind of bring in how it helps my clients as well. And I just kind of, and hard at times, but I just allow myself to be vulnerable and put out kind of what I'm actually thinking, which sometimes it's hard. But I go with the thought of, if this helps one person, that's the thought that kind of allows me to do that. And it's such a safe space. Like, there's never been any kind of, you know, another mum share quotes that they've seen on Facebook. It's just there's never been any problems in there whatsoever. It's such a lovely, a lovely group.
Love it. And you've got a new membership. We're the membership crew, aren't we, with our little clubs? When is that launching?
So that is launching at the end of this month, in time for Mother's Day. I thought that was kind of a good good time. So I'm doing a 3-day free coaching experience, just to kind of let people know how coaching can help. Because even though the Mum's Mind's been like running for like a year now, people are still asking kind of how coaching helps them. And I need to remember that I was being drip fed it for 6 months before I kind of, you know, thought, wonder if. So yeah, that coaching experience, Is It Time to Master Your Mind, is at the end of this month on the, oh gosh, now you're asking, is it the 23rd? The Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday before, 22nd, 23rd and 24th of March. That will be running. So yeah, just like a taster of how kind of working on yourself can help, because it was definitely not something that I thought was going to kind of be the answer to life being better for me. It was a bigger house or win the lottery or.
But isn't that with everything? I mean, with the Vivid Club and with what I do, I mean, and you do it, all the warrior energy stuff. Having that time in the morning, and I've converted you to getting up early as well, haven't you?
You have.
Like, and if you're still getting up early every morning, and are you snoozing your alarm anymore?
I snooze it once, but the reason I don't snooze it twice is because then it wakes the kids up, and I don't want them to be awake.
No.
So I'm like, it only gets snoozed once, just for 5 minutes.
Okay,
I can work on that.
Your face, such high expectations.
I'll work on that tomorrow, Claire.
But the thing is it's so hard. Like, even this morning, I didn't set I've got a daylight alarm. That really helps, by the way. Everybody getting a daylight alarm, or getting a lamp with a timer on, so you wake up with light. It's just a daylight lamp. Obviously, daylight alarm goes on gradually. So and I've had one for like 10 years, but I've had to chuck the last one out because it started getting so hot it was like going to burn stuff. So I bought a new one at the weekend. But having that helps you get up and not snooze, because it's obviously a bright room. But yeah, you convert it to getting up early, but having that time to do stuff for you in the morning before you're anybody else. And that's the thing, as soon as the children wake up, it's I'm a mum now. Or even when Dan wakes up, I'm a wife now. Not that I like wait on him hand and foot or anything like that, but this morning I got up, and having that time, I did some writing and watched some EastEnders with a lovely cup of coffee. Oh my God, I feel so good today. It's like such a treat.
Yeah. And I've heard about, you know, the 5 a.m. club, and actually John, who I worked with, he used to get up at 4:30, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, but yeah, you're right, just giving yourself that time when no one else is up, although Andy gets up at that, like we're both doing it. So if I'm journaling, I'm like, don't talk to me.
Yeah.
But then we do a workout as well, so we started doing workouts.
Wow, well done.
Yeah, we're back on it. But yeah, just having that time. And I find, especially, you know, with my eldest, he's going to bed later now as well, so you don't get that kind of time in the evening.
No.
So yeah, it is I do find it important, but I did snooze once this morning. Sorry.
That's okay. Listen, I love you anyway. Don't worry about it. Like, just because you snooze. But once you just stop snoozing, you'll never go back. That's the thing. Like, you come off the wagon and you think, oh my God. Like, I've been doing eating quite well because of my stomach and stuff. And the other day, Dan was like, let's get a Chinese, because he's off work doing the garden and all achy, so he needs a treat. And I was like, oh God, there's hardly anything on a Chinese menu I can eat, but I'll do it for him. Resent that quite a lot that I did that.
I have a husband, go with that one.
I have a husband anyway, so I did it, and it came, and the wrong food came, and I just still ate it, and then I felt rubbish, and I was like, do you know, you have to sometimes slip on to eating shit or snoozing the alarm to realise how you felt before every day.
Yeah.
So much shit, and now I'm eating really well. I've got so much more energy, and snoozing, if I'd snooze the alarm, I'm like, oh my God, this is horrendous. Like, why do people snooze the alarm? But you haven't got anything else to compare to, have you?
No.
Yeah.
It's like, I compare it now to if I don't journal. So like, and I took a while with getting into journaling. There's a theme that I'm skeptic about a lot of stuff, but but I think it's the police officer in me. But yeah, like, as in, you know, I really notice now when I don't do it.
Yeah, isn't it the better? Like, I could talk about writing all the time. I don't call it journaling for some reason, but I just do. It's exactly the same.
Yeah, you say pages, don't you?
Yeah, I do my morning pages. Yeah,
morning
pages. But yeah, I love it. I love it, and I've tweaked it a little bit actually. And I talk about, instead of just sitting there talking about all the crap in my brain, I'm like, actually, what have I got to look forward to today? And I try and write about my day in a really positive, like in a positive way, but in a, this is how it's going to happen, you know. And even to the point, and our friend Jess said this the other day, she's like, you know, saying that your makeup's going to go on well and your hair's going to go well and you've got the right outfit and stuff like that. So I do that, and it just makes me not be bogged down in the shit that's in my brain too much. Like, I'll have a quick brain dump and then get on with the rest of it, and it's really, really nice. It's like a little treat.
I was journaling on the weekend, and we'd had a really nice day, and I was journaling, and it was all good. And then, like, listen to this, I went back and corrected it to say, oh yeah, but one of the kids kicked off. And I was like, wow, like, how telling is that? Like, almost like if something doesn't go wrong, like, for me, it's not right. I just found it really. And like, the thing is, I was very aware of what I was doing, whereas when I wasn't aware of it, I had been doing that all the time without knowing. But I just thought that was really like, wow, I almost had to correct that it had gone right. And, oh, well, there must have been something that went wrong.
Wow.
Like, I know.
Oh my God.
I know. But to be aware of that, I was like, my gosh, I would have just done that. You know, it's a bit like when someone says, oh, that's a nice top. Oh, it's only from Primark. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, instead of saying thank you.
Yeah. So it was very much like that. And I was like, wow. Like that.
Yeah.
You know.
I do feel that whole thing, Jackson's in that period, we're talking about kicking off, and he is sort of really pushing the boundaries. And I'm just like, I try and not get too angry with him or cross. You have to have so much patience. But doing the thing in the morning, and the thing is I know people might be thinking, oh, it's all right for you two, you work on your own, work for yourselves, you can do what you like. Well, both of us actually got quite a lot of work to do most of the time. So but when I was teaching, I'd get up really early before everybody else anyway as well. So it's not, I did recognize I needed that extra time, but having that extra time for myself means I've got more capacity to have the patience that he needs me to have, because sometimes he's pushing the boundaries, but I'm just like, get on the step. And if he doesn't, I'm just like, get on the step. And if I've got to do that for a whole hour, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be like, mate, it's your choice. And I just keep thinking, like, he's got to learn that this is his choice. But also I recognize at the weekend he was being quite hyper, and I mean, I'm quite hyper, so I sort of recognize that kind of bit in him. But he was really bored. I was like, well, no wonder he's not been out today. He's got two parents. Like, we were both crazy knackered, like really tired at the weekend on Saturday. But I was like, but I could have done a puzzle with him. I could have sat with him and, done some letters or numbers, you know what I mean? And I just thought, and I wasn't beating myself up, but just recognizing, okay, there's a lesson learnt there. Tomorrow, I'm going to make sure we've gone out. Fresh air is going to do me good, and, et cetera, and trying not to catastrophize it, because I think the old me would have gone, oh, for God's sake, he's always kicking off, he's always in trouble, he's always crying, and and he's a handful child he's a nice handful of a child that he's got enough personality to fill a whole room and everything. And he's just exploring those levels of, well, how hyper can I get without disrupting social norms?
What's my limit? What's she going to let me get to? But it's so true. Like this morning with Bethany, like, she was nervous to go into school, and she was sad about something, and that meant that she was unhappy about going to school, so she kicked off. And before I would have gone down the route, because their behavior is triggering, and I'd have been like, right, you don't behave like this, like, but I was able to say, I have a 6-year-old daughter. And that was my thought. I have a 6-year-old daughter, and right now she's sad, and it just and that's taken some work. Like, don't get me wrong, that's taken work on me, and distancing myself from her behavior, because I think I very much wrap myself up in, if she misbehaves, I'm a bad parent.
Yes, yeah.
But I was able to distance myself, and I was really proud of how I dealt with it, because it didn't mean that we didn't get the behavior. We did, but she's actually worried about going into school this morning, and it wasn't that she was being naughty. Okay, some of the behavior I didn't like, but it was her anger. And
absolutely, there's always a reason for it, isn't there?
But it's so, and I just, that's another reason why like I call it the ripple effect of coaching, because I would have dealt with that so differently, like 100% differently. She'd have gone to school in floods of tears. Well, she wasn't happy anyway, but she'd have gone to school thinking she'd upset mummy as well, because I would have been up here, and it was just very different. And it still doesn't take away the fact that I'm sad or I'm worried about her, but I've done the actions from a place of calm, done what I need to do, and then I'll be able to speak with her tonight. And she isn't now at school thinking I've really upset mummy. But like I said, that doesn't happen overnight. It's taken working on me as a person, and distancing myself from, if they show behavior, because it's not naughty, if they show behavior, it doesn't mean I'm a bad parent.
And it's funny we were saying about ripple effect. So that you working on you helped you to manage Bethany, or help support her in a calm way. So then she goes into school and doesn't have a difficult day at school, which means the people around her, she's learned a lesson and been calm. People around her, friend might have had a better day because of it, and then her teacher might have had a better day because of it. And that's all from coaching. How mental.
It all from coaching and working on myself. And because I would have, oh my gosh, I look at how I kind of parented her 3 years ago, and the thing is, there's no judgment on myself there, because you don't know what you don't know, do you know? And we all want to be good parents, we all want to do our best for our children, but I think it's that, if I kind of asked her a question in an antagonizing way this morning, I then don't say, oh well, Joe, you shouldn't have said that. Like I'm learning, and that's another one I use. I'm a parent and I'm learning, like, because we're all learning. Like there's no, but we say, don't we, like there's no rule book with parenting, but yet we tell ourselves we should have it all sorted out. Like it's, do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, there's no rule book, but why aren't we doing it better? But yeah, like, you know, I'm learning to be a Bethany's parent, because and both the kids are different, like every kid is different as well. But yeah, it was just that this morning really showed me, you know, and she didn't go to school and I wasn't like punching the air going, woohoo, Joe, well done. Like I'm still sad about the situation. That's the thing, it's not thinking positively, but coming from the place of I know where I would have been. And do you know what, me and Andy would have argued, because I'd have been like, right, I'm dealing with her now then, do you know what I mean? Like it would have been all of that as well. And, you know, hopefully she's had a better day than she would have done. She's still sad, but that's okay to be sad. Like, and I would say it's okay to be sad.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's see when she comes home. But I recognise a massive difference in me. And I think for her especially, the work I've done on myself will help her so much, because she is an anxious little puppy, bless her. And that will help her massively.
Oh, amazing. So I ask, that sounded so ingenuous, but it is amazing. I just heard myself going, oh, amazing. No, genuinely it is amazing. Yeah, I'm very proud of you. So I ask everyone on here,
okay,
what would you tell yourself 10 years ago that you know now that you wish you'd known then?
I think, you know, and I listened to your podcast before, so I knew you had the question, but I think like working on yourself, like I wish that was taught in schools. I wish everyone knew that. So that would be the thing, like, as in, you know, do self-development, work on yourself, work how you feel about yourself. But also like know that it's all gonna come at the right time. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Because actually maybe if I'd worked on myself 10 years ago, I wouldn't be where I am now, and who knows where anyone would be. But yeah, I suppose be patient. That's what I tell myself as well, because I'm always like, I'll be happy when. Yeah. So be patient and work on yourself. That would be my two things that I would tell myself.
I think there's this book that I've read by Wallace Wattles, and it says in there that everything is perfect right now. Everything is perfect. So we're striving for perfection all the time, but everything is perfect. It's just not complete.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, that is it.
Yeah.
Like my life is perfect. It's just not finished yet, you know.
Yeah.
But understanding we've got a different idea. If you have an idea of perfect as in this is perfect, like a new definition of perfection. This is perfect.
Perfectly imperfect.
Absolutely, it's perfectly imperfect, just not complete. There you go, we've rewrote it. There's the title for the podcast.
There you go. Perfectly imperfect. And I think that's it, isn't it? Life is a journey, so enjoy the journey, because when you get to the end, that's it. There's no kind of utopia moment maybe, but yeah, perfectly imperfect.
Oh, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, we've been planning this for ages, and then I'm just like, I need you on this week, quick.
I know. Well, COVID got in the way a bit as well, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. But yeah. Oh, thanks so much, my love.
No, thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks. That's it. Bye.
Bye.
See you later. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to the No Rest for the Vivid podcast, written, produced and hosted by Claire Hill, and music has been composed by my brother Phil Vidler.